What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and continue learning about 101 facts about Canada, Part 2. If you haven't seen Part 1, feel free to go check that out first, or stay here in Part 2. That's perfectly fine as well. But in Part 1, I referred to this as my unofficial Canadian education, and that has been very, very true. I am learning about the most random, interesting things about Canadian stuff. I don't know, in part one, like about how Justin Trudeau has a tattoo of the earth inside of a bird on his shoulder, and how Canada was only technically fully independent only like 40 years ago or something, and just lots of stuff like that. So today I'm really excited to continue learning about all these facts about Canada that I never knew before. So let's take a look.
Number 34. Putting its numerous snowy hills and mountains to good use, Canada holds the record for the most gold medals won by a country in a Winter Olympics, winning 14 medals for various forms of not falling over on slippery surfaces.
That surprises me, but at the same time, that doesn't surprise me all that much. Canada, as a country, has the record for the most Winter Olympic, was it gold medals or just medals?
Winter Olympics, winning 14 medals for various forms of not falling over on slippery surfaces.
It's medals total. I think they said like 14 in one single Winter Olympics. That is I mean, there's the stereotype in America that Canada is always snowy, always cold. Canadians just live and exist in the winter. I know that's not totally true, really, by any means. You have summer and decent weather in some parts of Canada. But when you go and like dominate the Winter Olympics and the Winter Olympics, it's like, I don't know, makes me wonder, like maybe some of the stereotypes are a little true or something.
Well done, guys. Number 35. Though Canadians are stereotypically polite and slow to anger, one notable exception is the popular comic book character Wolverine, who is from Alberta, Canada, bub. His friend...
What now? Wait, what? Wolverine, the comic, the X-Men, Wolverine he's Canadian? He's from Alberta? So, what? Since when? What? They never mentioned this in the movie.
Frenemy, but mostly the enemy bit, Deadpool, also hails from the Great White North, too.
Not the actors, not Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. The comic book characters, Wolverine and Deadpool, they are Canadian. That's funny. Is that true?
Number 36. Oh. Canadians may be many things, but statistically speaking, stupid is not one of them. Canada is one of the most educated countries in the world. It's the only country on Earth in which more than 50% of the population... 14 medals for various forms of...
What? What was that? I just want to know how Canada is educated. What? I've never had a YouTube video stop, load, and jump back 2 minutes in time. What the heck was that? All right, anyway, I've heard a little bit about this fact before that weird interruption, okay? Canadians are very, very educated. I think they were going to say a statistic here, but I think Canada has like the largest amount, your population, the largest percentage of any population in the world that is college or university educated, has a degree, which is pretty amazing.
It's the only country on Earth in which more than 50% of the population is university educated.
Right.
Show-offs.
Yes, I mean, and just imagine, logically speaking, what a fantastic thing for your country. Like, what does that do to your society? And your country having that many highly educated individuals, it can only do fantastic things, having a very, very highly educated population. So that's something to really hang your hat on, or your toque. Really hang your toque on.
Number 37. Canadians are indeed a sporty lot too, and have contributed much to the world of sport. For instance, basketball was invented in 1891 by Canadian James Naismith while teaching in Massachusetts.
Basketball was invented by a Canadian? I thought basketball was just invented in Canada. Basketball, the sport, was invented by a Canadian? This would shock so much of America to its core, because we really, we love baseball and football and basketball, and we kind of think of those things as all American, but wasn't even invented here.
Originally, the baskets were actual baskets with closed bottoms. Every time the team scored, the ball had to be retrieved until someone had the bright idea to remove the bottom from the basket, no doubt making the game about 10 times less irritating.
Wow.
Number 38. Canada is well known for its distinctive dress national police force, known as the Mounties.
Yes.
Officially called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police,
Yes.
they keep people in Canada safe from crime and the prospect of not having fabulously attired federal law enforcement. Both equally important jobs.
Yes.
Number 30.
Oh, is that the fact? This is a fact that most Americans know about, to be honest. Like, even I know it. Mounties. Canada is, I mean, when Americans picture Canada, I've said this before, we picture snow, cold, maple syrup, moose, and Mounties. Actually, most Americans think Mounties, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, is the normal police force of Canada. Like, most Americans think Mounties are walking around the cities like the police. And that Canada doesn't have normal police, like dressed in black with typical, uniforms. That Mounties are all Canada has, which I know is totally not true. They're like a specialized mounted police force.
39. In addition to being enormous, cold, and bilingual, Canada is also pretty gosh darned progressive. In 2005, Canada became the third country in the world and the first country in the Americas to legalize same-sex marriage. Woo! Go Canada.
Wow, when was this?
First country in the Americas to legalize...
What year?
In 2005, Canada became the third country in the world and the first country in the Americas to legalize same-sex marriage.
Man, can you believe that it took to 2005 to legalize that? I'm not even sure when, this might be ignorant of me, I'll admit it, when that happened in the United States, and man, or if Canada did it before the United States, but only 20 years ago, 19 years ago. It's sometimes it's kind of shocking to think about how recent that all happened.
Woo! Go Canada. Number 40. As it bears the image of the hilariously named common loon, the Canadian $1 coin is commonly known as a loonie.
Right.
When the $2 coin was introduced, Canadians dubbed it the toonie, an imaginative fusion of the words two and loony.
So did Canadians, collectively decide it's the toonie? Is that a nickname, or is that the official name? Can there ever be an official... Is it really... Officially, it's like the $2 coin or something, right? Is it a nickname that it's a toonie? Most Americans, I've asked other Americans about this, most Americans have no idea about Canadian currency. Never heard of a loonie, never heard of a toonie. So, do you have a $1 bill? Or is it just a coin? Is there a Canadian $1 bill, like paper? Because we, in America, we only have the paper. Technically there's a $1 coin that you never see it. It's like a novelty. But in Canada, I've heard about this loonie quite a bit now. Do you just have a coin? You just keep it in a pouch? Like a pirate? Like a pouch of coins? Or how does this work?
Putting those university degrees to good use, I see. Number 41. As the vast majority of Canadians are in fact human, they require food in order not to die. There's a life hack for you. Canada has put its own unique twist on food, resulting in a number of delicious local dishes.
Okay.
Probably the most well-known internationally is poutine.
Poutine.
It consists of fries topped with cheese curds and gravy, and is
A lot of Americans don't know about this. I've heard about this. I've never had it before. Looks good. That's my gut reaction. I like gravy. I like fries. I like cheese. Cheese and gravy, I don't know. I've never had that combo before. But I've had gravy on potatoes, which is like fries. I've had cheese on potatoes, I think. Yeah, I've had cheese and potatoes. Like the baked potato. It just sounds like it would work. So the poutine intrigues me.
both French Canadian in origin and possibly the best frickin' idea I've ever heard. God bless you, Canada. The meaning of life. The lovable Winnie the Pooh is in fact Canadian in origin.
Really?
Author A.A. Milne based the adorable yellow bear on a real bear from Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Winnie the Pooh is Canadian. There's so many things that, like basketball and Winnie the Pooh, that in America we grow up, you know, watching and reading, and that, and this also goes for a lot of actors and movies that we just assume are American things and American creations, American actors. And we never, I don't know why this is. I mean, maybe it's just like a egotistical kind of thing where we're just like, oh, that's American for sure. We make everything that's good. It's like, no, so much of this stuff is Canadian made and it deserves the recognition.
Although it can't have looked exactly the same, right? Also, Winnie the Pooh doesn't exactly sound Canadian, but hey, who are we to judge? I've never made a lovable bear.
Cool.
Number 43. In perhaps the most stereotypical fact known to man, Canada is by far the world's biggest producer of maple syrup, with
Yes,
around 70%
okay.
of the planet's supply coming from Quebec alone.
I mean, this makes sense. I mean, and I try to fight against some of the Canadian stereotypes because, no one likes stereotypes in general. But Canada, like, you got the most medals at that Winter Olympics. Which one was that, by the way? You got the most Winter Olympic medals. You make the most maple syrup. Like, you're not doing yourself any favors with the Canadian stereotypes.
Number 44. Maple trees and their delicious blood is so integral to Canadian identity that the Maple Leaf, as well as being an ice hockey team, is considered to be one of the nation's most important symbols and features prominently on their national flag. See,
Yeah.
look very carefully. There it is.
Yeah. Most Americans associate this like all Americans at least know this. Maple leaf, the symbol, the flag, Canada, very Canadian. Yeah, this is actually something most Americans know, thank goodness.
Number 45. Most polar bears are Canadian. Around 60% of the world's polar bear population of approximately 25,000 live in Canada.
Really?
Maybe they're who Winnie the Pooh is based on.
Really? I don't associate polar bears with Canada. I associate moose with Canada, like most Americans do. But Canada has the majority of polar bear population in the world. I did not know that.
Number 46. Canada is made up of 10 provinces and 3 territories.
Right.
The provinces are Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, and, Saskatchewan. And the territories are the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, and Yukon.
Okay, this might sound silly, but this is actually a very important fact because most Americans, including myself, for a long time, well into my adult life, the vast majority of Americans, I would say 9 out of 10, more than that, 95% of Americans don't know the Canadian provinces. Most Americans don't know. I mean, I don't know if this sounds ridiculous to Canadians and embarrassing for us Americans, but here you go. Most Americans don't know that they are called provinces and territories. We just know about states. So we're like, I don't know, Canada? I don't, does it have states? I don't know. Ontario? As for the names, most Americans have heard of Ontario and Quebec. Then, in the back of our minds, we've heard the names like Saskatchewan, and we're like, oh, that's a funny name, and we're not quite sure where or what that is. British Columbia, maybe, and Quebec. But most Americans have not, maybe not a lot of Americans. I don't want to sell us too short, but a large amount of Americans haven't heard and don't know where Alberta is, or what Manitoba is, or New Brunswick, or Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island. Unless, I think if you're an American who lives very, very north and you actually border Canada, those Americans probably know what's going on a little bit more in Canada. But, for a lot of Americans that aren't that close to Canada, it's pretty shocking. And, I know from personal experience, just as an average American who had an average American upbringing, I didn't know about any of this Canadian geography for a very, very, very long time in my adult life. I think it's kind of insane. Now that I am familiar with all this, looking back, I'm like, that's crazy that we just walk around not knowing this stuff.
The difference between these provinces and territories are to do with rights. Territories are controlled by the federal government, whereas the provincial governments have far more individual control of their affairs.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, and this is great, because some of this stuff I'm a little more familiar with now, but there's so many little things like that I still don't know. So there is a significant difference between territories and provinces. I've wondered that. Territories are controlled by the federal government, whereas provinces, it said there's provincial governments. Interesting, kind of like how states in the United States, I have to make these comparisons because it's all I understand is America, really, is we have senators and governors that, run and govern our states. Canada has stuff like that for your provinces, I assume.
Number 47. Despite the fact that Canadian territories account for roughly 40% of the country's landmass, only 0.3% of Canadians actually live there.
That is insane. That is one of the most shocking stats I've heard in this whole video. How much of Canada? 40%? The territories are 40% of Canada and has 0.3% of the population. I knew the territories were not that populated, and most Canadians live very, very south, kind of hugging the Canada-U.S. border, where it's warm, nice and warm. But 0.3 live in the territories. Oh my God, that's like nothing. If you live in the territories, you have all the real estate you can imagine, I guess, huh? That must be kind of cool in a way.
Again, this is probably due to the fact it's disgustingly, wretchedly, hellishly cold. And that's coming from someone who lives in England.
Okay.
Number 48. Canada has at least 2 million lakes.
Wow.
More than all the lakes in every other country combined, which, frankly, seems a bit like lake overkill to me.
I did a video a while ago about how Canada has so much water. But I didn't remember there were 2 million lakes. How's that possible?
Number 49. Stoners rejoice. Give them a second to rejoice, they're a bit slow.
Okay.
Medicinal marijuana is legal in Canada, and the country is due to legalize the use of cannabis for recreational use in 2018.
Oh, how old is this video? Yeah, this is old news. Marijuana is legal in Canada, in all parts of Canada, right? I don't know the exact laws where you can partake. Can you do it in public, in your own your home? I'm sure, or how that works, but it's legal. Whereas here in America, it depends on what state you're in, and it's a bit confusing.
420 Blaze It. Am I doing it right? Number 50. The Canadian national anthem, imaginatively titled O Canada, was written in 1880 and was in French. It did not become Canada's official national anthem until 1980, 10 years after the government bought the rights for the song for $1. Bargain.
What? O Canada, which another thing we associate with Canada is the national anthem, O Canada. That's only 44 years old. And Canada bought it for $1. What a bargain. What a song. I'm just shocked. I'm continually shocked at how recent, a lot of the stuff is. When Canada became fully independent, when gay marriage was legal in Canada, when O Canada became the national anthem, it's all like so much more recent that I always think that happened hundreds of years ago. And it's like, no, it's like 44 years ago, like the national song. It's cool in a way, like that so much big stuff has happened. But, and it's not just ancient history. It's modern history. We're doing stuff. Canada is doing stuff, making moves, and teaching me a lot about Canadian stuff. But I think I'm going to stop here for now. We're halfway through the 101 facts. But we're already well into this video. So I think this is a good place to stop for now. I am absorbing all the Canadian knowledge, all of it. I really enjoyed this series. So if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of these Canadian facts, anything you can elaborate on or that I didn't quite understand, or that'd be great to hear about. And if you're interested in part 3 of this, or just more videos like this, me reacting to Canada, learning about Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.